Gentlemen, what are some telltale signs that a woman is creepy? If she doesn't ask me many questions or doesn't seem interested in my life but still manages to be clingy, aka she just wants a boy, doesn't care who, or just wants self-validation and doesn't care where from. When she puts a phone in your trunk on top of your spare tire to track you via GPS. I don't use my trunk. She knew that. She hooked it up to the 12-volt charger in my trunk and put a tracking app on the additional line she bought. I only discovered it when I had a blowout and had to use it. When I questioned her about it, she said she had trust issues. But good news! Every time I told her I was somewhere, I was at that place. We broke up after that. The story had a happy ending for me. It was a toxic relationship, but my next relationship was with the woman who would become my wife. We'll be celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary in a couple of months. I sometimes wish I'd been able to help my ex. She had quite a few good qualities, but the suspicion, insecurity, and attempts to control me were too much for me to deal with at the time. It sucks when you see what someone could become, but you know they probably never will. Girlfriend was practicing her signature and asked if she could see mine. Innocent enough, right? I rattle off a few beautiful Johnny Hancocks on a napkin and beyond admiring my own handiwork, didn't think of it further. Fast forward a week and she says, "Check out my new tattoo." And sure enough, it's my signature. First name only, on her right, or wrong, hip. Yikes. Fast forward to her solo European trip, turns out she cheated on me with a guy with the same first name. I bet he was scared. This girl I met on Tinder had me take her out to a restaurant and then switched tables with her friend. They'd been on blind dates and decided to switch. Her friend was not as attractive and I was very uncomfortable. After ordering my food, I went to the bathroom for 10 minutes to contemplate my exit strategy. When I got back, they'd both left. The other guy asked if he could sit with me, so we had dinner and he ate his dates enchiladas. It was actually kind of fun after they left. This turned out way nicer than expected. And? You and that guy fell in love over those enchiladas and have been married for 20 years now? No, we both ate and I fronted the tab because it was $26 and I was in a good mood. I saw him on campus about a year later and kind of smiled in memory. Commiseration meals. There is something so very wholesome about the result of this, even if it was just an hour's companionship instead of a lifelong friendship. My ex would freak out and throw things and scream at me. And that's not the disturbing thing. She would fricking forget about it and hit reset and act like it didn't happen the next day. Over and over. I started filming her episodes to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. That's called gaslighting. It's a form of emotional abuse, and I most often see people who are very, very insecure deep down use it. My dad did this to me and my siblings as we were growing up. He would have these big blow-ups at us and shout at us to leave the house, tell us we're worthless, what have you. The next day he'd be offering to make us lunch before we left for our work shift. If we, being vulnerable teenagers with bruised feelings, would turn down the offer, he'd get mad again. Not super aggressive necessarily. I'd leave for work early before letting it get that far, but he'd complain to our mum that we are ungrateful and mean to him because we refused his gracious offer. Happy news, my dad actually started to get real help about 3 months ago. This behavior was ongoing for the last 15 years, but for the last 2 months, I've been getting updates saying he's doing better. When after 2 days she tells you that she loves you, and also proceeds to mention that she loves your green eyes so much that if we ever broke up, she would steal them while you sleep and keep them in a jar in her room. When she constantly tells you how everybody in her life is out to get her, and nothing is her fault. I've been friends with her for about 15 years, and at times it feels like being a victim is her entire identity. At work, all of her bosses hate her for no reason, or because she's a woman, even though it seems to follow her from job to job, and she has many female bosses with whom this problem still exists. Her group of friends are completely different every 1.5 years or so, because she inevitably has a falling out and it's always their fault. In relationships, she behaves as if her boyfriend du jour is the only redeeming light in a world of evil, rotten people, until they break up, at which point he's always portrayed as a bullying monster and a shining example of what pigs all men are, in very public tirades on every social media page she has. Constant subtweets 24/7, but more so after a breakup. Now, I don't doubt that she's been hurt in relationships before. She, nor anybody else, doesn't deserve that. But I do have a hard time believing that every single man she's ever dated is a psychopath, every single boss she's ever had has been mistaken and out to get her, and every single best friend is actually a two-faced B-word. At some point, the common factor in all these situations is her. I don't mean to minimize the bad relationships she might have had. They are real issues, and people claiming abuse should be believed and should be taken seriously. After all these years and all these instances of problems, I do have a hard time believing her specifically, though. If the whole world smells like crap, check your shoes. If you meet a butthole in the morning, you met a butthole. If you meet buttholes all day long every day, you're the butthole. Anyone who just posts stuff about their exes on social media is someone to stay away from. It just screams, I'm an attention seeker and I'm unable to be mature about breakups. Bonus points if none of the problems in the relationship were apparently their fault. She'll joke about having kids before you're even in a serious relationship. I went on a couple of dates with this one girl who had mentioned how much she wanted kids. Nothing unusual, pretty common actually. I'm looking forward to being a dad one day. Then she started sending me those weird things where you put two people's pictures together and see what their kids would look like. One time would be quirky, but she sent me a different one every morning for a week. Broke it off when I realized I hadn't even given her a picture of myself. Oh, that last sentence was like a horror movie, oh my god. Met this girl in church group in middle school. We got to know each other because of the group, but didn't really become friends or anything. Stopped going when I went to high school and never really talked to her for 3 years. Then she commented on a Facebook status I had and we got to chatting, and I agreed to hang out the next weekend. I asked if we should invite other people in our church group since I hadn't seen any of them in a while, and she said no. I thought this was because she liked me and wanted to hang out with me, so I was flattered. I kept talking to her throughout the day. The next morning I woke up at around 10 a.m. to about 7 or 8 missed calls, 2 voice messages and countless text messages from her. I was pretty creeped out by then. The nail in the coffin was one of the messages I got was from an old friend from the church group asking me if I talked to that girl. I was confused how my friend knew I'd talked to this girl before. Turns out the girl had started messaging my friends, asking when I wake up in the morning and why I hadn't messaged her back. That went from, oh yeah, going on a date, to nope, overnight. I had this. I was excited to go on a first date with a cute girl. Night before the date, everything is good. Come morning, I get a text from her saying she's a little nervous because she just got out of a fairly serious relationship. I replied saying, yeah, that's fair, how recent was it? I'm wondering if this is like last week, a few months ago, just trying to understand her position. She flips a switch and starts swearing at me and acting like I was accusing her of something. Very odd. She got very defensive. I told her not to worry about the date, maybe not the best timing. She says some snide, yeah, fine. And that really was that. Very strange. Plot twist, the relationship was to be ended the next day after you proved stable enough a stepping stone. Hopefully these were all teenage problems rather than personality problems. There's hope that the girl in the first story grew out of it. I once responded to a Flatmate ad, but the criteria was single, male, 30-ish year old. Turns out she wasn't looking for a flatmate, she was looking for a husband. I was always clear that she would just be a flatmate to me. The weird things included getting upset when I didn't make her aware of when I was coming home or just coming home late. She slept in a pile of laundry, but the rest of the house was immaculate. I brought a girl home once and she moved from the lounge to her bedroom beside mine so she could hear what was going on. Things got super weird after a lot of daytime texting with nonsense questions and flat meetings. Then outright banning my friends. Then an extreme amount of verbal abuse. And when I moved out, she'd just come up to me and yell stuff like, "You're such a fricking loser." Basically, I'd started seeing another girl and she went over the edge. I always refrained from reacting and just got the frick out. For those of you wondering, no, I never slept with her and the boundaries were always super clear from the start. Specifying age and gender and relationship status is pretty common for a share house, and I've spent 10 years traveling and working in different countries and see that requirement all the time. This happened in Melbourne, Australia, and I'd just moved to there, and I was trying to get out of a backpacker hostel quickly. There weren't many red flags on the ad, or our first meeting, but a lot was hidden from me before I moved in. The laundry pile was always on her bed. I have no idea if it was clean or not, but it was always there every day. Some of you are saying that's not weird, but I haven't seen that before or after. She wasn't ugly, but she wasn't anywhere near hot enough for me to take the risk. When I say she moved from the lounge to the bedroom, I mean she was watching TV in the lounge, we came in and said hello, went to my bedroom moments later, and we could hear her in there reading a book. We never had any conflict up until I gave her notice about moving out and she asked if it was her. It was, but I made up some crap about being new to the area and wanting to be somewhere more social, closer to the nightlife, etc. The girl I'd started seeing was mega hot, way out of my league, and the awkwardness of bringing her to my flat surely ended that relationship prematurely. I could also tell she was in the next room because people who are alive and nearby make normal human noises. Also, sadly, I got instantly friend-zoned by the hot girl, so we were just hanging out. It was easy to hear noise from the next room, not sure why that confused people. I was always super nervous around the hot girl, I don't know why. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Here are some of my red flags. She dyes her hair every color of the rainbow just to see how you'll react. Tells your family to back off because you're hers. Cheats with her male roommate while you run out to the car to grab a red box. Gives you herpes. F you, Rachel. Go eat a bag of members. An inability to apologize for anything ever. Punishing you with the silent treatment for doing something you had no idea would be offensive to them. Having expectations of you, and then they don't try to meet them themselves. I would never stand that in a relationship, but it happened to me with work colleagues. They never understood why I don't mind that they're ghosting me, instead of annoying me or freaking out at me. Some nice peace and quiet for a change. In high school, there was a girl who liked me. She ended up carving my name into her foot. Soulmate. She probably wanted a friend in you. No, I think she wanted the friend in her. Asking for your passwords, your phone, email, Facebook, etc. as a sign of trust. Nope, I have nothing to hide. However, when you think you need to have that information, it shows you already don't trust me. And anyone who asks and then says they won't use it is lying. They may not use it that day or even soon, but they will use it at some point, because the same suspicion that led to them asking for it will lead them to use it. Oh, and I'm not talking about something like your Netflix or Amazon Prime password, which can just be convenient. Heck, I have some of my friends' Netflix passwords. We're talking about phone, email, and social media passwords specifically. Secondly, if you want to offer it, more power to you. But someone shouldn't ask for that is my thought, especially not as a way to prove that you aren't cheating. And 3, like most things, marriage changes stuff. I still think it's a bit much to have all of someone's passwords and have access to everything they ever do or people say to them, but I understand it a bit more in that situation. I had a girlfriend who yelled at me for spending $9,000 on my mountain bike instead of her. I race professionally and I took her out to dinner at least 3 times a week and got her gifts all the time. Plus, we got to travel the world thanks to sponsors. But the one purchase for myself was too selfish. The bike was an Aurum HSP2 with box components, in case you're wondering. This is literally my roommate's girlfriend. He takes her out to dinner 3 times a week, travels 50 miles every week back and forth to visit her at school, buys her jewelry and nice things, etc. Yet the one time he couldn't make it to her school for a visit, she called him to scold him for his selfishness and then broke up with him via text. The saddest part is that he drove all the way to her school that night to talk to her about it, and she fell asleep before he arrived, so he had to sleep in a parking lot in his car overnight. Until she woke up. Somehow they're still together. Makes me mad because he deserves so much better. You should remind these people of the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've invested time and money into someone, it doesn't mean you should continue with them. Make your decision based on what you know now. Oh god, I'd never thought to use sunk cost fallacy in the context of a relationship, but now you mention it, it might be the main reason so many terrible relationships go on for as long as they do. Food for thought, people. Tighty-whities stapled to her wall as conquests. I've seen it, it's out there. Extra points for rubbers instead of underwear. Historic documentation. Talks about all the health ailments she thinks or is convinced she has, and then continues to consume foods which she claims she's extremely allergic or intolerant to that are wreaking havoc on her health. And holy frick, as I was typing this, a text from her came in telling me about some random health ailment. When she goes through your drawers when you're sleeping. Oh, my cat used to do that. I used to always wake up to socks all over my bedroom and have no idea why, until one time I woke up in the middle of the night to see my cat systematically taking socks out of my sock drawer and then discarding them somewhere else. I think you should start seeing a different cat. This one sounds really toxic. Outright refusing to believe that a guy might not be into her advances. I've seen a woman stare in bewilderment at her boyfriend after he had to repeatedly remove her hand from his groin because she couldn't comprehend that he didn't feel like getting felt up in a public area. I've also had a woman, middle-aged, throw a tantrum because I wouldn't buy her a drink when I, 22 at the time, was at a bar, while I was with my parents and some visiting family members. I worked at a resort hotel as a younger man. Older women would legit put their hands wherever they wanted on the staff and think it was hilarious, but if you got upset or didn't gracefully remove your body from their grasp, they would get teed off. Like, how dare you seem ungrateful after I did you the favor of massaging your eggplant while you tried to pour coffee for the table? What the frick is it with people who think they have the right to the bodies of waitstaff? I've seen this way too many times against both genders. It's messed up. I had to leave a party after my grad school graduation because this girl who I couldn't stand wouldn't stop trying to stick her tongue in my mouth. Like, I'd push her away and go to a different part of the bar, and she'd follow me and try to make out with me. After several minutes of me telling her to F off, I just had to leave. 60,000 texts will do it, not 65,000. What about 69,420 texts? Heh, nice. A girl I befriended in college seemed pretty cool at first, but I quickly learned she had huge attention-seeking problems. I took her to a party where she was all over me. Arm in arm, holding my hand everywhere we went, I wasn't allowed to be alone. When I was talking to another pair at the party, a couple at that, she kicked it up a notch, trying to kiss and be cuddly and whatnot. I was fine with it at the time because, hey, she's nice, she's cute, a little intense, but I could be misreading it. But I certainly was into her. It was kinda nice being the target of someone else's affection like this. After the party, I walked her back to the dorm and she informatively told me not to try anything because she had a boyfriend. Bonus! Same girl a few weeks later told me that if I'd really wanted to sleep with her, I shouldn't have told her I was straight, because she can't help but turn men. A long time ago in the 90s, I was set up on a blind date. The girl knew way too much about me. She knew my brother's names, where I grew up, and other personal stuff you'd have to dig a little to find out about. This was pre-Facebook, and back in the 90s, she would have had to ask people who actually knew me to find out. She was just a friend of a friend kind of thing, so I noped out of that one pretty quick. Later, I asked the people who'd set me up on the date what the heck, etc., and it turns out the girl had this super long crush on me and was reportedly devastated that I wasn't into her. Luckily, I steered clear of that possible Stephen King novel scenario. It sounds like she should have really just played it cool and asked you about those things on the date. Yeah, those are all really reasonable questions to ask about a person when you're going on a blind date with them. Save for the siblings' name thing. She should have brought that up in a more natural context. You know, I have to ask the question, is it any better if this person is concealing their obsession and asking a list of pre-prepared questions they already knew the answers to and saving the crazy obsessive reveal for later? I at least appreciate how upfront they were about it. I dated a girl in university that turned out to be severely mentally ill, and we dated for many years as she turned me into a shadow of myself, devoid of self-esteem, friends, and any sense of self. Heed my words or be doomed. She wouldn't like it if I went anywhere without her, or did anything without letting her know. I don't know if it was jealousy or what, but it really angered her, and if I ever went anywhere without her, I'd spend most of my time chatting with her on my phone and trying to calm her down. She would contact me randomly throughout the day to tell me she felt terrible and I had to go and be with her. It didn't matter what I was doing. Usually I was at class or at university or trying to hang out with my friends. It was expected of me to speak very lovingly and tell her I'd be over right away. Even if I went over right away, she would get mad that I didn't sound very happy about it, then fight about that. Or if I said I couldn't do it, she'd lose it at that too. You can't imagine how badly this affected my academic and social life. Even if we were together, I couldn't do stuff that wasn't about her. Doodling in a sketchbook while watching a movie? She'd flip out. Mess around on my guitar while we're lying around in my room chatting? Fury. She hated all women who dressed freely. Girl in shorts? Whore. Girl in miniskirt? Horrible slag. What was weird was that she was a hippie liberal girl with progressive parents, but when it came to other women being in touch with themselves, it was somehow terrible. Didn't have a lot of female friends in general, and if my housemates ever brought girls over to our house, she'd get really insecure. Would have random episodes due to her bipolar, causing her to scream at me, throw crap at me, drive extremely erratically, and just generally treat me like garbage. I was basically linked to her 24/7, either physically or by phone, and if we ever got into any kind of argument, I couldn't just walk away and try to cool off. That would drive her nuts and she would panic even more and pursue me. I could go on about her and her behavior, but these were at least things that were there from pretty much the start. Other things revealed themselves over time. In the end, she broke up with me, which I couldn't believe. At first I was angry with her, but very quickly that anger turned to me. When I think back to how long I stayed with her and how badly she treated me, I feel such hatred for myself for doing that to myself. I was weak. She was broken, but she made me feel like I mattered sometimes, and that was enough for far too long. A girl wanted to date me, and she told me how she climbed in her ex's second-story window to argue with him. No thanks. When they know more about your errands than what you told her. Extra creepy point if she becomes angry when you deviate from your initial daily plans. Extra creepy points if she starts angrily texting you when you change your plans as your day is unfolding. When she's a colleague from work and she turns up at the gym coincidentally 5 minutes after you've arrived, and she's in a low-cut top and starts laughing and touching your arms and bending over and just generally being weird. Especially when she knows that you have a wife and kids and this 45-minute session is the only peace you get 3 times a week. The second date is to a federal prison to visit her son that's doing life for murder. Later saying the phone she snuck in her hoo-ha made her too sore to do the deed that night. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.